Honourable member for Vancouver, Quadra.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am very pleased to participate in the debate on the issue of affordable housing. It is a very important matter in British Columbia, and in fact it's more than an issue, it's a challenge, because we have many families in our province who do not have the housing they need.
Housing is very expensive, and there is a high cost to our socioeconomic fabric, to our communities in urban and rural areas alike.
Issue of affordable housing isn't going away, and it's really not improving. And it's an issue that affects about 15% of all Canadian families that are essentially in a situation where they don't have stable, suitable, and affordable shelter, and that's known as core housing need. So imagine that as a country like Canada, where actually, I'll correct my number, 13% in 2006, but my guess is that the statistics are higher now. So that many Canadian families who are not able to focus on the other important aspects of their lives, raising strong, responsible children, to be distracted by wondering whether one is going to be able to pay the rent or whether one is going to be able to find housing that has enough space for family members, or whether that housing is heatable, is it safe, is the electricity safe? I mean, there's so many health and safety concerns that are raised when one does not have access to safe, affordable housing, that it would be safe to say that that would distract families from the other important objectives that they would have. So as a health and safety concern, this is a matter of social justice that in our country we address that core housing need of the 13% of families that don't have access. From an economic perspective also, this is hugely important because once again, when housing is not supporting and nourishing the family, then that will be it would be difficult to focus on other issues, whether it's education or whether it is suitable employment and whether it is income mobility, lifting the family up through the efforts of the members to where the income is at a place that the housing is affordable. So it's a matter of social justice that we address this issue. Mr. Speaker, this is one of those big, complex issues that governments really have a responsibility to address and to take a leadership role. And that's something that the current Conservative government is completely failing to do. Affordable housing isn't something that can be left to the municipalities, even though our city of Vancouver has made huge strides in bringing together a affordable housing task force in terms of putting it on the provincial and federal radar again and again, in terms of Vancouver's commitment to emergency shelters and having spaces for people that otherwise would be on the streets of our city. So yes, municipalities have a role, but they can't do it alone. And provinces can't address this complex challenge of affordable housing alone either, even though in British Columbia, as in other provinces, there's been major influxes of resources and time and effort in British Columbia, the British Columbia government, and I'm sure this is happening in other provinces as well, has purchased some of the buildings in downtown Vancouver and converting what were rundown hotels into single resident occupancy rooms that can be combined with supports for those that have families that have other needs, or individuals that have other needs, support for those needs, so that we can reduce the number of people living on the streets and create a portfolio of affordable housing. So provinces work on this, but they can't do it alone. And what they don't need is a federal government that pumps out some money once in a while, but doesn't have stable, predictable funding and doesn't take a leadership role on this issue. And so that's what I'm asking this Conservative government to do. A leadership role doesn't mean that it's the federal government's responsibility and the federal government has to be a landlord for affordable housing. But leadership does mean having discussions with the provinces and municipalities. It does mean taking a lead role in really assessing the problem in all its complexity, and with its partners developing a strategy that will perhaps require funding or other tax measures, but that has a compass point that all of the partners are headed towards, and has the flexibility as well to address the issues in the communities where affordable housing is the biggest challenge, but in the way in which they need to be addressed to really to really get on top of this problem. So this is one of those kind of big public policy issues, like access to affordable childcare and like access to a pension security that Canadians have faced over the generations, and that federal governments, especially Liberal governments, have actually said, yes, this is not easy to fix, but it's our responsibility for the fabric of our country and its future to tackle it. That's what the Liberal governments did with a number of our social programs that today are programs that we're all proud of, that do provide social security upon retirement. That's one, unfortunately, that the current government wants to change, and change it in such a way that those who have the lowest income will actually be having to wait 2 more years to get their pension. So the burden of what the supposed fix is will fall most heavily on low-income, senior, single women, actually. But those kinds of social safety nets that the Liberal governments over the years have had the courage and taken the bold action to put in place, that kind of effort, that kind of commitment is needed on the issue of affordable housing. En Colombie-Britannique,
in British Columbia, the Liberal Party considered affordable housing the primary policy in our conversations. That is what came up last November when we spoke to people. The people of British Columbia, Liberals throughout our province, agreed fully that affordable housing was key to the well-being of people. It is a responsibility of all members of our communities, as well as those who are in affordable housing. We need to create support for people so that everyone has this right.
The primary proposal by Liberals at our last convention, the solution is federal government leadership, which we're not seeing. And in fact, this government is doing a variety of things to undermine income inequality in Canada. Not having affordable housing, which 15% of our families don't have, it costs them their well-being, but also their economic opportunities. And Mr. Speaker, we're in a country now where the gap between the rich and the poor is increasing faster than it is in the United States. And some of this government's policies are responsible for that. And I'll cite the example of tax credits, in which those credits go only to families who can afford to be paying income taxes. So, for example, the sport tax credit, that is a transfer of $120 million from the Treasury to above-average income families, Canadian families, totally leaving out those families who probably are the ones that are in need of affordable housing. So this government has a job to do on affordable housing. They're not doing it, and I call on them for humanitarian and also economic and equality and justice reasons to take a leadership role and begin to do their job.
Reprise le débat.